A single envelope arrived at the FIFA headquarters in Zurich this week, carrying a weight far greater than its physical dimensions. It landed on the desk of Gianni Infantino, bearing the crest of the most successful footballing nation on the planet. Brazil has had enough. They aren't protesting a loss. They won their recent match against Scotland 3-0. They aren't protesting a lack of form. Vinicius Jr. is currently playing the best football of his life. What Brazil is protesting is a systemic failure that threatens the very integrity of the sport's greatest stage. The document obtained by the Brazilian newspaper Estadão is not a standard grievance. It is a formal prosecution of the modern game's officiating standards. It is precise, it is evidenced, and it utilizes a witness that FIFA never expected to see in a Brazilian legal filing. That witness is Lionel Messi. The 48-nation World Cup was marketed as a celebration of global inclusion. It was supposed to be the ultimate expression of football's democratic reach. Instead, for the Brazilian Football Confederation, or the CBF, it has become a case study in institutional inconsistency. The story begins in the 21st minute of a group stage match in Miami. It ends in a legal and diplomatic confrontation that could fundamentally reshape how refereeing is managed at major tournaments. To understand why Brazil is willing to risk its relationship with FIFA, we have to look past the scoreline. We have to look at the mechanics of a disallowed goal and the ghost of a tournament 8 years in the past. This is not just about a referee's whistle. This is about power. The scene in Miami was electric. Brazil versus Scotland. For the Seleção, the objective was simple: avoid defeat and secure a path to the knockout rounds. They were doing more than that. They were dominating. In the 21st minute, Vinicius Jr. pounced on a loose ball in the midfield. He dispossessed Scotland's Jack Hendry with a challenge that was physical, committed, and to the naked eye, perfectly legal. Vinicius surged forward, leaving the Scottish defense in his wake. He finished with the cold, clinical composure that has defined his rise at Real Madrid. The ball hit the back of the net. Mexican referee Cesar Ramos pointed to the center circle. The goal stood. The Brazilian fans in Miami erupted. Then the silence of technology intervened. The earpiece in Ramos's ear crackled. The VAR team, stationed in the high-tech review center miles away, had flagged the buildup. They didn't see a goal. They saw a crime. Ramos was directed to the pitchside monitor, a walk that has become the most dreaded sight in modern football. He watched the slow-motion replay of the challenge on Hendry. He saw the contact. He returned to the pitch and drew a rectangle in the air. The goal was overturned. On the touchline, Carlo Ancelotti, a man who has seen everything in 5 decades of football, stood in genuine disbelief. His coaching staff was not so quiet. They erupted in a wave of fury that mirrored the shock in the stands. But the CBF's complaint isn't based on emotion. It is based on a very specific, very rigid threshold. FIFA's own protocols state that VAR is not there to re-referee the game. It is not there to find marginal infractions. It is designed to intervene only in the case of a clear and obvious error. This is the cornerstone of the Brazilian argument. They contend that the contact between Vinicius and Hendry was a matter of interpretation, not a factual mistake. If the on-field referee saw the challenge and deemed it legal, the VAR has no mandate to overrule him unless the decision is indefensible. By overturning the goal, the CBF argues, the officiating team broke FIFA's own laws. The letter states it clearly. The disallowed goal does not appear to be aligned with the philosophy adopted in this competition. That word, philosophy, is the key. It suggests that the rules are being applied differently depending on who is on the pitch. To prove this, the CBF did something extraordinary. They didn't look for a mistake in a minor match. They looked at Argentina. Specifically, they looked at Lionel Messi. In Argentina's second group match against Austria, a nearly identical situation occurred. Midfielder Alexis McAllister made a physical challenge on Austria's Xaver Schläger in the build-up to a Messi goal. The contact was arguably more severe than Vinicius's challenge on Hendry. In that match, the whistle stayed silent. The VAR did not intervene. The goal stood. Messi's name went on the score sheet, and Argentina marched on. Brazil is now using their greatest rival's success as a weapon against the governing body. They are not asking for the Scotland goal to be reinstated. They know that is impossible. Instead, they are demanding an explanation for the double standard. Why is a physical challenge a foul for Brazil but good play for Argentina? This is strategic warfare. The CBF is documenting a pattern of behavior that suggests the philosophy of the tournament is being adjusted on the fly. This isn't just about one match. This is about the institutional memory of a nation that views the World Cup as its birthright. The CBF's letter pivots from the Miami incident to a deeper, more personal grievance. They have identified a specific antagonist, Cesar Arturo Ramos. To the rest of the world, Ramos is a respected Mexican official with a long resume. To Brazil, he is a recurring nightmare. The letter reaches back 8 years to the 2018 World Cup in Russia. In Brazil's opening match against Switzerland, Ramos was the man in the middle. That match ended in a 1-1 draw, a result that Brazil felt was manufactured by poor officiating. They remember the foul in the build-up to the Swiss equalizer. They remember the denied penalty. The CBF has now formally cited that 2018 fixture as evidence of a negative history. They are alleging that Ramos is not merely prone to error, but that his history with Brazil makes his appointment a conflict of interest. This is a massive escalation. It is one thing to complain about a VAR call. It is quite another to demand that a specific referee be blacklisted from officiating your matches. The CBF has demanded that Ramos be removed from any and all future Brazil assignments in North America, not just for this tournament, but permanently. This demand is without modern precedent. If FIFA grants it, they admit that their appointment process is flawed. If they deny it, they risk a total breakdown in relations with their most valuable commercial and sporting asset. Brazil is the only nation to appear in every World Cup. They are the soul of the tournament's marketing. Without the yellow shirts, the World Cup loses its magic. The CBF knows this. They are using their historical leverage to force a change in how the 48-team era is governed. They are tired of being the test cases for experimental officiating. The expansion of the tournament to 48 teams was always going to bring challenges. More matches mean more referees are needed. More referees mean a potential dilution of quality. But Brazil's argument is that the dilution isn't just in talent, it's in the consistency of the law. This wasn't a series of isolated mistakes. It was exactly how the system was designed to work. The system was designed to favor the narrative over the rulebook. By highlighting the Messi goal, Brazil is pointing out that the stars of the tournament seem to operate under a different set of VAR criteria than the workers. The silence from FIFA headquarters has been deafening. Usually, the governing body is quick to defend its officials. They issue statements about the high standard of refereeing and the success of the VAR technology. This time, there is no such defense. The letter sits in Infantino's office, a ticking clock of a document. If FIFA ignores it, they face a public relations disaster in South America. If they respond, they open the door for every other nation to start demanding the removal of referees they don't like. Imagine a tournament where England can veto a German ref, or France can ban an Italian one. It would be chaos. But Brazil doesn't care about the chaos of others. They care about the 5 stars on their chest. They won the Scotland match anyway. Vinicius Jr. scored again later in the game, proving that his talent is greater than any officiating error. Matheus Cunha added a third. Brazil topped Group C. They are heading to Houston to face Japan in the round of 32. On paper, everything is perfect, but the mood in the Brazilian camp is one of calm outrage. They feel like a team that has to play against two opponents, the 11 men on the pitch and the 3 men in the VAR booth. The financial implications of this row are also significant. Brazil's matches draw the highest global viewership numbers of any nation. Their sponsors, Nike, Itaú, Vivo, pay hundreds of millions of dollars for the association with the Seleção. If the Brazilian public begins to believe the tournament is rigged or inconsistent, the commercial value of the World Cup drops. FIFA is a multi-billion-dollar corporation that happens to run a sport. They cannot afford for their most profitable partner to feel cheated. The CBF knows that when they speak, the sponsors listen. The letter also touches on the transparency of the VAR process. In many leagues, the audio between the referee and the VAR booth is released to the public. In the World Cup, it remains a closely guarded secret. Brazil is demanding that the criteria governing VAR intervention be applied transparently and equally. They want to know what was said in Ramos's ear. They want to know why the McAllister challenge wasn't even reviewed. They are asking for the one thing that FIFA has always been hesitant to provide: total accountability. As the tournament moves into the knockout rounds, the stakes only get higher. A disallowed goal in the group stage is a frustration. A disallowed goal in a semi-final is a national tragedy. Brazil is trying to fix the system before the games become win or go home. They are setting a perimeter. They are telling FIFA that the philosophy of the tournament needs to be codified, not interpreted. They are demanding that the rules remain the same, whether the player is wearing a yellow shirt, a blue and white shirt, or a Scottish blue one. The history of the World Cup is littered with officiating controversies, from the hand of God to the ghost goal of 1966. But those were errors of the human eye. They were accepted as part of the beauty of the game's fallibility. VAR was supposed to end that. It was supposed to bring the justice that Brazil is now demanding. Instead, it has created a new kind of injustice, one that is calculated, slow, and seemingly biased. The CBF isn't just fighting for a goal. They are fighting for the soul of the sport in the digital age. The Brazilian public is fully behind the federation. In the streets of Rio and São Paulo, the narrative isn't about the 3-0 win. It's about the theft in Miami. It's about the perceived favoritism toward Argentina. This cultural pressure fuels the CBF's boldness. Ednaldo Rodrigues, the president of the CBF, knows that his legacy depends on how he protects the Seleção. He cannot afford to be seen as weak in the face of FIFA's bureaucracy. The letter is his declaration of strength. It is a signal to the fans that the federation will fight for the team as hard as the players fight for the ball. The controlled collapse of the officiating hierarchy is already underway. By naming Messi, Brazil has made it impossible for FIFA to dismiss the complaint as sour grapes. They have turned it into a comparative study. They have put the refereeing department in a position where they must explain why two similar incidents had two different outcomes. This is the nightmare scenario for Howard Webb and the rest of the refereeing directors. There is no good answer. Any explanation they give will either admit a mistake or admit a bias. As Brazil prepares for Japan in Houston, the shadow of the Miami incident hangs over the training ground. Ancelotti is a master of focus, but even he has mentioned the need for clarity in his press conferences. The players are aware. They know that a clean tackle might be their undoing. They know that the clear and obvious standard is currently anything but clear. This psychological burden is part of what the CBF is trying to remove. They want their players to play football, not to play with the fear of a hidden camera. The 48-team World Cup was meant to be Infantino's crowning achievement, a legacy of expansion and wealth. But if the tournament is remembered for a legal war with its most important participant, that legacy is tarnished. The philosophy of the game is at a crossroads. One path leads to a transparent, consistent application of technology. The other leads to a fragmented sport where the most powerful nations dictate who referees their games. Brazil has already chosen their path. They have laid down the gauntlet. The letter remains on the desk. The knockout rounds are beginning. The world is watching to see if FIFA has the courage to answer or the wisdom to change. Brazil has 5 titles. They have 70 years of dominance. They have the conviction that the game owes them nothing but fairness. That conviction is why the letter was written. That conviction is why Messi's name is etched into a formal complaint. And that conviction is why, regardless of the reply from Zurich, the game will never be the same. The Seleção arrived in Houston under a hot Texas sun. They stepped off the bus with the swagger of a team that knows they are the favorites. But behind the scenes, the lawyers are still working. The analysts are still clipping footage of every Argentina match. The CBF is not backing down. They are documenting. They are comparing. They are waiting. The world of football has seen many revolutions, but this one is being fought with ink and slow-motion replays. The stadium in Houston will be packed. The yellow shirts will dominate the stands. The whistle will blow, and for 90 minutes, the letter will be forgotten. But the moment a player goes down, the moment the referee touches his ear, the tension will return. The ghost of Cesar Ramos and the shadow of Lionel Messi will be there, hovering over the pitch. Brazil has made sure of that. They have ensured that no referee can step onto the field with them without knowing that their every move is being measured against a 5-star standard. FIFA's silence cannot last forever. Eventually, a decision will have to be made about the appointments for the quarterfinals and beyond. If Ramos appears on a Brazil match sheet, it will be seen as an act of war. If he disappears from the tournament, it will be seen as a surrender. Infantino is trapped between a rock and a 5-star hard place. The 48-nation dream is facing its first true reality check. It turns out that making the World Cup bigger didn't make the problems smaller. It just made the stage for the drama much, much larger. The final image of this saga isn't a goal or a trophy. It's a man in a suit in Zurich looking at a letter from Rio, realizing that the most successful nation in history is no longer willing to play by a set of invisible rules. Brazil is heading to Houston. Japan is waiting. The knockout rounds are about to begin, and the most important result of the tournament might not even happen on the grass. The 5 stars demand respect.